intro exclusive for the people that are here listening, because it won't actually be officially announced until tomorrow when the podcast goes live and we start sending the emails. But two announcements. The first one is that a week from today, on Tuesday, February 23rd at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, we're going to do a special live event with Udi from Gong. And we're going to talk about a B2B SaaS company that ran a TV commercial and the thought process around that and the measurement around that and different things like that. We're going to talk about Gong has been doing a lot of interesting things in terms of progressive marketing strategies that bleed the lines of things that are difficult to measure. Love that stuff. Can't wait to dive deeper into that. And then also, like, I know his position really well, and I share it about what marketing's job is. Marketing's job is to make sales easier. And so we're just really excited to have Udi come on. That will be a live. There'll be an email to go out to register. We'll drop the link in the show notes. That'll be happening, like I said, next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then after that, we will have our regularly scheduled Demand Gen Live episode with a special guest. You all know him. We all love him, Gaetano Donardi. So we'll do a special Demand Gen Live at the same regularly scheduled time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, on Tuesday, February 23rd. So it would be back-to-back live events with two heavy hitters. Really excited about that. And if you all can make it, would encourage you to check it out live. So now that we got that stuff out of the way, let's get into the agenda. And so we went with a theme here on the agenda, and the theme as promoted was customer experience. But just to frame it up for definitions for people, I'm going to narrow it into buying experience just to make it a little bit more simple. And so in terms of buying experience, it's the entire thing from when they've never heard of you until they sign the contract and start going through onboarding and all of those pieces. That's the buying experience. And then after that, customer experience and things take over. And so if we look at just that, I'm going to go out of order on the agenda and to kind of riff on why an amazing buying experience should be a part of your marketing strategy. And I think it's a really interesting thing to ponder because, and we've had a couple episodes on this. I see LinkedIn posts go out a bunch of times about it. Hey, really wanted to buy this software, submitted a demo, got a email from an SDR 7 days later when I already bought their competitor's product, or really wanted to buy this product, submitted a demo, got a call from the SDR. The SDR told me that they couldn't show me anything, couldn't tell me the price, and it was going to be 2 weeks to get on a call with an AE. I wouldn't bought their competitor's product, or whatever those types of things are. I wanted to figure out the price. The price wasn't there. I wouldn't bought the competitor's product. Any of these different things that are happening in an experience are places where if you are a marketer and you are generating high intent leads that are actually going to become customers, then you need to start being accountable to the experience that happens after that. And a lot of marketers, we all know this excuse. Oh, I was generating so many leads, but sales isn't following up. Sales needs to close. Sales needs to do better. Sales needs to do this. And if you just looked at yourself, you would realize that your leads are not good. And that's why they're not closing. I've done this more than enough times with more than enough companies with more than enough 10 years of reps to know that the quality of the lead and how they get to you is the number one factor to whether or not they become a customer. And so with all that said, this is pretty important. And so why marketers should start to think about this is because if you are going to be accountable to, let's say, qualified pipeline or revenue, then there is a component of that process that you need to look at to understand what is happening. And so because people will fall off before they get there if they're not getting the experience that they desire. We got a ton of people rolling through here. I'm a little bit distracted. And so it's good to see everyone. People are going to fall off, especially on the process before they actually talk to an account executive. And so I'm going to switch to gallery view. This is tough. for speaker view, especially before they actually talk to an account executive, is the number one place where people are falling off with high intent leads. And so another one, just definitions for some of the people that may not have listened before. Low intent lead, your ebook download from LinkedIn, your content syndication lead, your webinar register that no showed, low intent. High intent lead, hey, go to your website, I want demo or pricing or different things like that. If you siphon off the bucket of people that actually want to talk to a sales rep and figure out how to make that whole process go as smoothly as possible, so that they ask for a demo, they talk to a rep, they go through a rep that knows what they're talking about, that can go through a discovery and show them the product and then guide the rest of the buying process, is a very important component of the success of marketing and generating pipeline and revenue. Now, when you go into these companies, and I've probably done it with somewhere with over 25 now over the past 18, 24 months, is that a lot of sales teams, because marketing sends so many bad leads, they expect them to be bad. And when they expect them to be bad, they're not going to focus on them. And then that's where you end up with the poor experience. And so the easiest stem from this is 10,000 garbage leads and 100 demo requests, and they get mixed in a pot and you can't figure out where they go. So what I'm really encouraging companies to think about is to completely split those in half and send your high intent demo requests directly to account executives, ideally with like a calendar invite on your demo page so they can just book it directly with their rep. Like if you, I'm going to go in a different direction here. I would talk about starting with a blank sheet of paper. I've been using that theme for quite a long time. Like if we had a blank sheet of paper about how a customer would buy something with us today, what would we do? And if you exclude the idea that this is going to be a self-serve product-led flow, and this is going to be sales-led because it's going to take you a while to build out in the product, or for whatever reason you don't want to do it, then if you started with a blank sheet of paper, what you would want as a buyer is you would want to figure out that you want to buy it. You want to go to the demo form. You want to book a link with the person that's going to close the sale. And then you're going to go through that process. And so we'll kind of get it started there. But I think this is critically important for any marketing team that's not measured on leads, is going to need to figure this one out. And so a lot of companies still are measured. Marketing still gets measured on leads, but it's coming. You are going to get pushed later funnel. And so, and when that happens, having these things figured out would be a good idea. So we'll pause there.
Well, I think it reminds me, I feel like lots of people have said this, but like great marketing can't fix a bad product or a bad product experience, right? And so there, in addition to everything that you just said, it's sort of also the quality of the product and the service, the thoughtfulness with which not only the buying experience, but everything that happens after is so important. And like, you think of the best companies where you have the best possible experience. Like how many times have we talked about like rippling on this show? And like, it was an easy buying experience. So it's like all of those factors play into it as well. And often marketers are a little bit distanced from that stuff.
Mm-hmm. The problem is that the best product doesn't always win. It really doesn't, especially in B2B SaaS where products are basically the same. And so the best product doesn't always win, because who defines what the best is?
The market.
The individual. It's 100% subjective. I might think that a product's better than what you think, Megan, right? And so it's 100%. The quality of the product is subjective. And so what happens after that, and when we watch as feature parity comes in and sales loft and outreach converge on one another, and all these other categories of products that are going to do the exact same thing, and every MarTech vendor is going to try and race up to compete with Salesforce in the CRM category, and they're all going to, that's what's going to happen. And at that point, it comes down to, is your product good enough? Ideally, is it great? And do people know about it? And do they like you? And can you provide a good experience? And so these different levers to pull outside of product and sales, I think, are really interesting. And it's marketing and buying experience. So I think the two that are most critical right now, especially as there's product parity all over the place in the market.
Yeah, that's a good point. John has a thought and a question related to this. Let me
Love that.
bring him on to interject. John, give me a second. I'm going to unmute you. You on?
Yes, I am. But unmuting me is your first mistake.
I beg to differ. Talk to us.
Good to have you here. What's up?
I'm just curious of your thoughts, Megan's thoughts, and really several folks in the audience. Everybody's got a different perspective on this, and I try not to get religious about aspects and business models and or even sales models. And I came up as a sales guy for about half my career. Then I switched over to product management, product marketing, and came up marketing the second half. And I'm seeing this whole SDR BDR model. I don't think it's working anymore, and I don't think it has for a while. I'm not saying that those jobs are going to go away, but I think they're going to kind of morph back to more of a full sales cycle where they're kind of they got to add more value as kind of a junior sales rep or an entry level sales rep. Then they grow up into AE and go on to do other things. And I'm just curious what you think, what you're seeing in the marketplace. It's a rather unpopular opinion. The few people I've mentioned it to. So I'm kind of curious what folks here think.
I would imagine that it's an unpopular opinion, to believe it or not. Not that I disagree with it. And so the first step is to define, because it's important to define what is working mean or what is not working mean. So to me, 30-month CAC payback is not working, right? And that's, you're going to find 18 to 36 month plus CAC payback. And as you get early and earlier stage, it's going to get worse and worse, right? And so to me, that doesn't feel like it's working, especially because I know something better to do. However, investors might think that it's fine. And so it really depends on how you see it. But I have watched this since 2016, about the amount of money that gets invested in a BDR function to set meetings and then track the cost of that, the cost of the salesperson's time, the win rates, the overall revenue created, and how bad it is. And I now look at a lot of companies and I get involved, whether it's in discoveries or inside of Salesforce, and I go in and quantify it too, right? And so I've seen this as an employee in several companies. Early stage, it's really bad. And then as a advisor, consultant, whatever you want to call it, I've probably seen 20. And over the past 12 to 18 months, I believe that it's gotten a lot worse. And I see that the easiest way to see that is when I go through 2021 planning with companies, or I talk through with prospects what they're going to do on their 2021 planning, or I listen to some people on the Zoom or who I'm talking to, and recognize that they are not projecting very much growth from the outbound channel. And so do I believe that it's not working? Yes, I do. Do I believe that it could be better? Absolutely. I've believed in a full cycle model, and I've been talking about it for 4 years. The reason being is that it's very clear from a customer perspective that it is a better experience. And so in pursuit of perceived efficiency, and I love to use the word perceived because that's why the companies built predictable revenue for perceived efficiency. And if you actually looked at and you compared the two models together to revenue or customer acquisition cost, you might find that the actual full cycle model was actually better, because in pursuit of having a 60K SDR BANT qualify people before they talk to your AE, you're fucking up a lot of deals. Let's just call it what it is. And so, yeah, I think there's, I'm not sure how much further I can go on this one, but I really think that model deserves to be challenged. Now, the way that I look at it, and I've been getting smarter about how I communicate and explain this, is that the idea of inbound SDRs is stupid. In my view, if you just cut out all of the garbage low intent leads and you sent your high intent leads to AEs, then you wouldn't need that function. And then you have to debate on the outbound side. And people can do whatever they want. If they're going to go and hunt $1 million deals with 3 SDRs per 100 accounts and try and go into those ones, be my guest. You know what I mean? They'll be able to justify it somehow. But I do believe that from a customer experience and where the market is moving, that individual reps that are experts, actual experts in what their buyers do, and communicate that through content as a method of business development, which would be way better than outbound sales, as a way to source their own pipeline with marketing pipeline put in, will be the direction that this moves. The question is whether all those pieces come together before most companies just introduce product led.
Thanks.
So we'll see, but
It'll be interesting.
I mean, I'm not going to do a poll here, but I'll do it for everyone can think about it for themselves, especially the people listening afterwards. As long as you are not one of those SDR managers that's answering every single cold email to give them feedback and then post about it on LinkedIn, as long as you're not one of those people, think about the last time that you bought something from a cold call. I'm not sure that I ever have, literally. And so those are, I just think that that's a really interesting, an interesting way to look at it. I just don't see buyers buying that way as much anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think the toughest challenge with this is how ingrained companies are with this model, how many people are in the role, and how difficult it is for companies to actually, even if they believe it to be true, actually execute on a change like that. It's a pretty massive reorg. And so
yeah, the transition would be incredibly painful.
Yeah.
Go ahead, finish.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that's gonna prevent any meaningful change happening in the short term.
Totally. And it's not really a perfect example, but I'm going to use it because I just came to my mind. I also think that it's funny is that like Blockbuster could have changed their business model. Like they could have done something different and they didn't and the reason that they don't is because the transition would be hard and it would break their existing business. Companies don't innovate because, and this is, I'm just going to go deeper into why marketing teams don't innovate, is that they build a machine and then they only focus on that machine working better, or they only focus on getting that machine more profitable or more efficient, right? They never think about, is this right? Is this the right machine? Do we need to go over here and build a different engine? And so I think that's like a really interesting example. But the transition for an established organization would be very hard because in order to do it, you would literally have to break your entire revenue model and rebuild it. Now, that does not. So if you have that spectrum, and then you have all the companies that have 10 employees that just raised $5 million Series A when they have 4 customers, and they hire 10 sales reps, 4 A's and 6 SDRs, and they close 1 customer a month for 4K MRR. And that's what happens. And so the companies that are building right now, there's no excuse to not build it the right way the first time. And there are plenty of industries all over the place that run full cycle. Medical device is a good one, right? There's industrial manufacturing. There's a lot of different industries outside of SaaS that have never touched this model. It's interesting to think about.
So I want to bring on Anna because she just started a new marketing position and she has an SDR and was asking how she should leverage them. Why don't we get some more context and try and like talk this out? Anna, I'm unmuting you.
Perfect. Yeah. So I just started as the marketing director, for a new company, which is really exciting. But I'm building my own team, but there's a legacy SDR on the marketing team. They've been really underutilized. There's not any sort of strategy around their outreach right now. They're just kind of doing their own thing. So I've been tasked with building them into my marketing plan. And to be honest, I'm struggling to envision what that looks like. So I'm just looking for some advice as to how an SDR can be a part of a demand gen program.
How much website traffic do you get every month?
We get about 50,000 hits a month, but we're looking to grow that by like 2 or 3 fold. this year.
Yeah. So this is an interesting idea. And we'll see, because what I would, it's tough because this is putting my vision on what I want the position to be, but with the constraints of what is already existing. And so if I would do it, I would kind of like get a different skill set and then I would build this, but let's just go through the example for the sake of it. So this person would be focused on live chat, not a chat bot, live chat on that during business hours. Number one priority, helping people. The thing that messes up on live chat is that they are scored on booking meetings. It completely changes the intent of what that is supposed to be about. I've watched hundreds of live chat SDRs try and jam me into a meeting when all I wanted to do was get an answer to my question, right? And so number one, you have 50K website visitors, live chat, help people. The next thing that I would think about is to have this person be looking inside of communities and forums. And so find the Reddit sub communities or whatever, I don't even know what they're called. Find those communities where your types of buyers are hanging out, and they to generate insights, not even necessarily to talk. To go into the Facebook, to find their way into the Facebook groups, to start following or connecting with the types of people on LinkedIn that your buyers talk about, and then getting involved in those comments if they have enough of the knowledge about your product and can help people and get involved. I think those are interesting things. So I don't know, depending on the volume, that could be like probably 50 or more % of somebody's job right there. And then from there, I think it's sort of dependent on what, other things that are going on inside of the business. The other things that I would try is like outreach to high value accounts with content offers. I've been trying to push this for 4 years. Like it was like SDRs cold calling, booking meetings, going to meetings, immediately AE goes to meeting, immediately close loss. Do that 100 times over, right? And so it's like, why are we still doing that? Why don't we try and send them a piece of content? Like we just filmed this 50-minute video about this clinical trial with somebody that they trust. Why don't we just send them the video and say, hey, thought this would be helpful for, some of your people to look at. And so not through outreach, not automated spam, but like thoughtful messages with content tailored to people. But the thing for you to think about is that becomes 100% content driven. And so you got to have good content when you go out and do that.
We are hiring a content person.
And then test channels. And so could be email, could perhaps LinkedIn DM. There are other ones out there, but that's sort of, I think that's a really interesting experiment to use that resource in a different way. And then the next thing is, if they're going to do all those things, how are you going to measure whether or not they're successful, right? No SDR could ever do any of the things that I just talked about because of how they're measured on meetings. I know a lot of SDRs that are only measured on meetings booked, not even whether or not they show up or not. And so then you have to think about how that person gets scored.
Okay. Thank you.
What do you think? Do you have any other ideas that I didn't mention? I would be interested to hear what you've been thinking about.
I think, well, part of this builds into it because it's an ed tech company. So a lot of our outreach right now is to districts, but I also want to use potentially this position to start building relationships, at least with people at the the Department of Education level at the states, as well as other educational organizations that are either local to an area or specific to a type of school as well, to start building those relationships based off of content and resources to get us in front of their target audience. The
challenge, and this starts to go into with this resource, the only way to build those relationships is to be valuable to those people. And I just am not sure that person is. Like 6 years ago, none of the CMOs that really want to have a 30-minute meeting with me would ever want to talk to me, because I wasn't going to be valuable to them. Right. And so I think that assumption that they would be able to do that, I think you should pressure test that a little bit.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I like this idea. building out, we're hiring a content person who's a subject matter expert within our niche. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to create content for this SDR to go out and send those personalized messages. So it's
if you have the subject matter expert and you have the content going, this person could be scheduling podcasts. You know what I mean? There's tons of other options. Identifying who could be on the podcast, like architecting the live event. Like they become more like a marketing manager, marketing associate than an SDR.
I'll just throw it out there too. I don't know if you've had a conversation with this person about their long-term career goals, what they want to do. Could be good to also check in with them on whether any of these ideas would even resonate. And I hate to say it, but if you only have one person and you don't want the function, that's an easier change than if you had 20 or 30. Just putting it out there. Just putting it out there. That. No one wants to be in a role that nobody else wants.
No, we're going to, here on Demand Gen Live, we are going to pave the way through Anna about a new way to use an SDR resource on a marketing team. Because I don't think that sad's the right word, but like I'm seeing a lot of SDR teams move under marketing so that marketing owns all the top of the funnel. Like that is the thought process is that marketing owns all the top of the funnel, and then the SDRs do all the same stuff. And so John talked about it before Anna came on about the idea that maybe this function doesn't belong here, but what companies are doing are just kind of like moving it around. Cool. We got any other
no other questions on this topic? Do you want to jump to another agenda item? I have one from Charlie before, but we can wait.
This is one I'm excited to talk about. So the next one on the agenda, which we've been having quite a bit of success with in doing this, and we've done it for several companies now, is using paid advertising as a customer market research for improving your product messaging and go-to-market strategy. And so I think this one is really interesting. And the caveat with this is that this is one component. Nothing will ever beat talking to these people, right? So it becomes one little thing that you can use at a broad scale to validate something, but then you need to go in one-to-one with people and get the qualitative in different channels. And so I just want to push people because I still don't see a lot of marketers doing primary market research on their own with customers and prospects, and there's nothing that beats it. And so listening to gong calls isn't going to get you there. Doing a survey is not going to get you there. Running paid ads, test messaging, all of those three are going to help, but they're not going to get you there. Talking to people, you got to do. Okay, now that we have that PSA over with, we've been using this specifically for testing messaging, but I want to talk about another example that I thought was really interesting. And so the other example was to figure out test price point for a very low dollar value product. We're talking like $20 a month. Okay. And so at $20 a month, we had 3 separate ads going at 10, 20, and 30. And the product wasn't even able to be sold. It was just, so we were just running it and then driving them to a landing page and then having them fill out something to get informed about when it was ready, but the price was prominent. And so, and then what did we find? That the click-through rates and the overall submissions that were exactly the same on 10 and 20, and they were very far down on 30. And so what does that tell you? $20 is probably the right price point. And then you could do it again at 20, 25, and you could start to like narrow in even more. But I thought that one was a really interesting idea. The idea that at 10 and 20, there was no difference in conversions or clicks or anything like that across a large subset of highly targeted people, I think is a really interesting use case for this. In terms of the messaging, we've been using this a ton. And so specifically with how you message your product and the idea that if you have one feature that does something, how many different ways that you could talk about it and then start to collect data on which ones are resonating more, with the only variable that you change is the copy in the creative. That is a key insight. No design differences. If there's a software UI in the design, The exact same thing, exact same background color, exact same text. The only thing that you change is the words. The words in the creative, and then everything around the ad is staying exactly the same too. And so you have one variable test. You could run 3 or 4 different angles of your, email phishing cybersecurity prevention tool or whatever, right? So you could have message 1, keep your inbox safe, keep your inbox locked up, no hackers in here. Or you could go through and run 6 or 7 types. And then based on how people are responding to them, and then even more so, if any people submitted like a lead form, if you want to do it that way, or a demo form, or if you just want to measure on engagement, we get enough based on engagement. So we don't run a lot of direct response. So we're not going to measure it on that. But just based on how many people click through and then engage is enough to understand this, because again, it's the only variable that's changing. And so we've been doing that a lot, especially for companies that are less than 5 million ARR, because they haven't done a lot of the other steps. They haven't gone out and talked to customers. They haven't clearly identified their ICP, except for, we only want to sell to 5,000 employee plus accounts because they have the highest ACV. That was their market research. That's how they define their ICP. And so because they haven't done that, it takes a little while to figure out the messaging. It takes a little while. And then sometimes it takes a little while to figure out who you're actually going to target, but it can give you a different angle to help figure this stuff out in a way that has more scale than one-on-one conversations. And so you have a hypothesis, or maybe you go out and do market research and you talk to 10 people, and you, at the end of that, you come back with 3 hypotheses for how you want to message your feature. And then you take that and you run your 3 hypotheses across a large subset of customers, and then you find the winner, because there will be a clear winner. You find the winner, and then you go back out to the market with that winner and you start testing it again. Another key thing, this is really interesting as I go back to what John's question was, in the medical device industry, marketers go out and test sales messaging before they give it to sales. I've spent many a times talking to respiratory therapists about the messaging that I figured out, and I figured out how it worked, and what questions they had and what objections they had, and then you roll it out to sales. That's not how it works in SaaS. And so I just find that the comparison quite interesting. I think we'll get into that later in the agenda as well. So I think there might be some questions on that one. Feel free to open it up at this point, but that I think it's a different angle of using paid ads. Some of our customers that are smaller are seeing a lot of value in it.
Yeah, I think the craziest thing is, especially in the work that we do, there really always is like a clear, obvious winner. And it's surprising that that's pretty consistently the case. Ashley does have a question. I'm unmuting you, friend.
Thank you. Okay, so
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Happy Mardi Gras.
Mm-hmm.
I am considering, or I've already been in discussion with, but we don't exactly know what we want to do with my product team on a SaaS product, building in a differentiator, because it's a new product that we are going to market with. And one way to differentiate, because there is no differentiator right now, would be to offer like success strategy that comes with that product. So it's not just like every other service that does this thing. Mm-hmm. There is strategy for your industry, or how you should expand your e-commerce from Shopify to other channels, or things along those lines. So I'm questioning how to like integrate that into a product, and B, wanting to test that in other ways before like asking a dev team to design this into something. So I was thinking about doing some content marketing testing just around the success content that we would be putting together, or some one-on-one CSM testing. I'm curious your thoughts.
My hot take straight away is that this is table stakes. This is not a differentiator. It's table stakes in SaaS. Mm-hmm. And so like delivering onboarding and customer success and content that helps people use the product in the right way and think about strategy, I view as part of the product. Did I mishear you? Or like I sort of feel like you should be doing that anyway.
Yeah, we're entering into something like basically we're building something to enter Shopify app marketplace, and it's like just a critical first step into that. And so it's very much like a similar product to like 500 on the market. And so I want there to be something different. I've noticed that there's a lack of that level of assistance coming from the existing competitive landscape. So trying to challenge them to create that reason to buy this product over any other.
Is there a resource constraint why you wouldn't have people fill that gap versus technology?
Very lean team. They wanted to launch without that sort of differentiator. So it's me pushing against that and challenging them. We intend to beta with that level one-on-one, but my hope is that as we serve people one-on-one, we build out some options that if you were in the software and you're like, I sell electronics, I've started on Shopify, we push your feed to other channels. What channels should I go? Where should I go next? And give like qualified advice about where they should go next versus like, well, we offer these 15.
Yeah. So as a early entrant with a Me Too product with a lot of other competitors, that is a recipe for losing, right? Like I've specifically killed products that we were going into that there was no differentiation and there was a $10 billion competitor that owned the market, right? Like the only way that you win there is on price or brand because you're in a commodity space. And so you might be able to, get a little bit, you know what I mean? Like you might be able to get a little bit of success, but long-term, I would think about like not leaning in on the success so much and focusing on two places. One, go and talk to customers and figure out where the gap is. There is a gap in the product and just build that thing. Right. And so you can keep the wheels turning. You can get a couple customers, you can get things moving, but you need to figure out what the differentiator is and where it's open and how it's positioned and how you need to segment the market to be right for them. Right. Like you might need to be that tool just for the people that sell jewelry on Shopify, not everyone. Right. And so like segmentation, targeting, positioning, I think is a huge exercise, which then can drive differentiation. And then the second place that you need to think about, and this sort of goes into your success thing, but I think about it as brand and thinking about how to do that content at scale, because you can win with a Me Too product in a commodity space with brand. Okay. So I would do the brand activity. If you need to do a little bit of the stuff that you were talking about to get the stuff moving, feel free, but I wouldn't spend too much time there because it's a losing strategy long-term. And then thinking about how do I go out in the market and really figure out where we're going to fit and how narrow we need to be to get a foot in.
Thank you. Can't wait to deliver this feedback.
I can't wait to hear how it goes. Cool.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you. Good question.
Good answer.
Brings me back to my product management roots.
Charlie had a quick follow-up when we were talking about paid ads and using that to inform messaging, et cetera. He was asking if you can basically like how much traffic from these ads would be necessary for the insights to be considered like meaningful and valuable. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, we're not running statistics on this stuff. Okay. we're not getting to make sure that we have a point, P at 0.001 or whatever the statistical thing is. We're not running statistics on this. It's a gut feel with enough data, and it's an indicator. It's a initial sight of something that gives you an idea that then you can go out and validate with qualitative market research. Like those are it needs to be paired. Like this data alone is not going, you should not be making decisions about your business on this data alone, but it can get you into the right direction, which then helps you get out and do other things like that. When we're doing these things, we're delivering millions of impressions. Because while we're learning, the design is to drive demand. And so we have a budget allocated to drive demand. And for smaller companies, they need to learn at the same time.
Cool. Makes sense.
But I think that you could get, like, depending on what your test is, I think you could get indicators at 50,000 impressions.
Do we have one more agenda item you want to tackle before we get into a couple of the pre-submitted questions? And guys, if you have questions, drop them.
Let's drop into the Q&A. I'm not I think I'm going to stay away from this topic
for that.
Okay.
Charlie, you submitted one in advance. Let me bring you on. Late night over in the UK.
Oh yeah.
Hi, how's it going? Good to see you again.
Great to see you again.
Charlie.
Cool. Yeah, no, cheers for answering that question. I was sort of hoping you'd come out and be like, yes, you need this many, but obviously that's a dream. Okay. No, so
There's some scientist out there will give you the number, but it's not me.
Well, I've actually been doing a training program of Growth Tribe, which kind of gets onto my question. A lot of what I've been taught, I'm sort of relearning through them. And they're quite a big stressor on reducing friction between the user and the conversion outcome you want, right? So I've been learning all this web development, create a great website of loads of pages for my company. And there's actually a note my manager gave me which said more pages equals more credibility. So that was our guiding philosophy. And then these guys are coming in and saying, reduce all the friction, reduce the amount of external click outs you can, just really narrow in the funnel to lead to the outcome. And I guess my question for you is, how does that run up against your philosophy of demand gen? Because I hear you say, and I'm going to sort of vaguely quote around you, but educate your users with content with no ulterior motive to help them generate demand, right? So don't try and stack MQLs. But I was looking at your website and I see that when you finally click through to the conversion page, you've got already your nav. So clearly there is a point at which you start to reduce the options, but I'm wondering if you could articulate that balance between educating them and kind of trying to funnel them towards an outcome.
So on our website, we use a lot of the best practices that we tell our customers to do. We try to be a model. We publish pricing. We have a direct calendar link to start a sales conversation, and we optimize our conversion page based on our best practices through a lot of A/B testing. And so we just, a good strategy that we found over the past 18 months is just doing the things that we tell our customers to do and showing them what they should be doing. Now, when it comes to the idea of like simplifying the website and stuff like that, whether or not the nav was there would not change our conversion rates, right? Like the people that are there have gone through a lot of marketing before they actually go there, and they're just passing through our website to book a meeting, right? Which is different than a lot of other companies that have more of a pure lead gen strategy where that 0.1 percentage point for the bunch of traffic that they're sending there that doesn't want to buy matters to them, right? And so that's really the difference. I create marketing in other channels and wait for people to come and actually want to buy it versus trying to shove people through a funnel and squeeze a couple of people out, especially when you are sales led or you need to go through an actual sales process with a human, because when you squeeze people through, you actually just waste a lot of sales team's time. And so if it's a self-serve product, there's a completely different story, right? Like if they can go in and they're buying a $99 course or a $99 a month subscription or, whatever those things are, then build your funnel, right? Like, and then they might sign up and then they might put their credit card in and they might never activate and then they're going to churn in a month. But there's no real harm done in that scenario unless it starts to become a repeated thing where you're wasting a lot of money to move people through that process. And so when I talk a lot, I talk about sales-led motions with the empathy for how much time marketing wastes of salespeople. And it's not marketing's fault. It's the organization's fault for building their model the way that it is. And so that's why I don't do a lot of these things, is because over time, it will break. It will cost too much money to continue to grow at that rate because of how inefficient it is. And so I just try and build it the right way, at the first time. Any follow-up? I'm not even sure I answered your question. We kind of went in a different direction there. Oh, he's on mute.
Oh, sorry, Charlie. You're back on.
Hey, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you kind of answered the question, which is obviously there are different clients. I guess to reframe it in an even more direct way.
Okay.
If you're in, I hate these questions, but if you're in my situation and your CEO asked you to stack a bunch of MQLs, right? I'm thinking I can literally just make a type form funnel, 3 different sections of it. And I built that today, and I just want to see what the outcomes are. So I guess I want to ask you, like, have you ever done that? Have you ever just literally been like, I don't even need a website. I just need a type form funnel to generate leads?
I've tried a lot of things, but I haven't tried the type form. And just to be, again, I'm going to go in a different direction, but I had an idea that I want to thought about this. All of the things that I talk about not doing, I've done myself and realized that they don't work. Right. And then I figured out a better way to do it. And then I go into companies over and over and see the same thing the exact same result that I've seen inside of their data. And that's why I feel so strongly about not doing these things. Right. And so, but the only way to figure out whether or not something works, if nobody else has done it, is to do it. So I think you should try it. Right. And then it ultimately comes down to, what is your actual success indicator? If the success indicator is if people fill out the form, you're probably going to have success. The success indicator is those people fill out the form and then become customers that support the ad spend. It's probably not. And so it's interesting when you start to peel back the layers there, but I think you should give it a shot. I've been asked to use your words, to stack MQLs before, and I know that I execute stacking MQLs better than anybody else, and I also know that when I stack MQLs, it doesn't actually drive any results. And so if I was put in that position again, actually, let me look back. If I was put in that position 5 years ago, when I knew these things, I would probably do it. If I was asked to do it right now, I would probably resign.
I'm bringing you back on in case you want to react, Charlie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely don't want to resign. I love this. I love this company. But I think, firstly, you did answer my question, which was sort of, if you were asked to stack MQLs, how good would you be at it? Because I imagine you'd be a bit of a legend at it. I think the outcome I'm going to take from this is use a type flow form and try and stack so many MQLs that the sales team spend like the next 2 years trying to follow through them, so then they never ask me to do that again.
Yeah, it's a great, I mean, the unfortunate part is that when you actually go through this, the sales team doesn't get it. Like, they get that the leads suck. Like, that's obvious. The leads are bad because they don't have buying intent. And so that one's obvious, but they think that you just wave this magical wand and the exact same volume of leads comes through that are good, that have a bunch of buying intent. That's just not how it works. And so when we talk about like the sales and marketing alignment challenges, it truly is an organizational issue. This is not one versus the other. It's just the goals drive this exact behavior. And the only way to fix this is to fix the goals. To fix the mindset first about what marketing is and what sales is and how they're distinctly different, and then fix the goals, and then fix the execution. That was a cool back and forth, man. Good question. Thank you.
I'm going to sneak George in. You had an interesting question, and I want to hear your voice. And then Nuam, I'm going to bring you on next.
Yeah, I saw a couple of questions pop out in here.
Trying to unmute you, George. You on? It's good to see you.
You too, Megan. And Chris, are you talking about the question about the phone number?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so 20 years ago when I was first starting internet marketing, I learned that, and this still goes on today, and I have no idea why people do it, but they don't put on your mobile, like Google went mobile long ago. So I found out that if you put your phone number and your email, like at the top of your mobile presence, you absolutely increase leads. Yet whenever I talk to a company, they're like, no, we're going to put it under the contact us button. I'm like, so if you read the Zappos stuff from before, it's like, well, you don't want to talk to your customers? Or I noticed you guys on your site, you have a form that is a good qualifier, and it probably weeds out the garbage. But the problem is, now that you guys have got some name recognition out there, you're starting to get some traction now. Some people just want to go to your site and click a button and call you. They don't want to fill out a form. So why make them jump through the hoop? Let them email you, or, you're going to get some spam emails. That's the problem with it. But I did this with, more than a few companies. And once we switched to their phone number to the front page, It absolutely increases leads, and it makes no sense to put it there unless there's no one to answer the phone, or you don't want to talk to the customers, which I know is not the case with you guys. So I'm assuming it's your form is your qualifier, right?
Yeah,
And it's a good form. Yeah.
Let's zoom out a little bit, because I've seen this in a couple of different angles. So at
Sure.
one company that I worked for, by removing the sales rep locator and putting a corporate phone number, sales rep locator, someone could go in there and find their rep in Indianapolis and call them directly and bypass everything, right? So removing that and moving it into a main line that goes into, at that point, the company didn't have any internal SDR type or inside sales resources. So it went to customer service, right?
Yeah.
When we actually did that and we actually tracked it, 30% of the pipeline was coming that way. Right. And so that's a meaningful amount of stuff for marketers to close the gap on attribution, and for companies to recognize that it can be a meaningful amount. Now, I've been at other companies that there's two components of it. There's putting the phone number in, and then there's actually delivering when someone calls you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and so
important.
just putting the phone number in, and then, I've gotten the answering machine at plenty of SaaS companies calling in, right? Like, that's not a good thing. I didn't go out and fill out a form afterwards. And so I think it needs to be a cohesive strategy all the way through, or it's not going to work. And I agree. Sometimes there's things that I want, and I want to do it right now, and I'm going to call. And so, and on the flip side, we have plenty of Salesforce data with a lot of customers. Some customers get have their phone number on the website and get zero revenue from inbound phone calls. Maybe they're not tagged appropriately. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe they're not answering the phone. I don't know. But when you just look at the data, zero from inbound phone calls. And so, if you think through it, it either needs to be a flow of pipeline, and the organization needs to make a decision that people want to call us. They want stuff now. We're going to have to figure out when Susie calls from Boston and she gets the SDR that's responsible for the Pacific Northwest, how that's going to happen. And so a lot of these, like the geo routing thing, is one of the things that's just completely broken, right? Geo routing, territories existed when you had field sales reps, when they needed to be there. We are inside sales in SaaS, you know what I mean? And so, and it creates a ton of different issues about, okay, how are we going to route this person? And it creates a terrible customer experience. The organization has no way to figure out that each rep has the exact same amount of accounts in their territory. So,
you're all good points. I thought that maybe the best part was, once you get it organized, as you say, is to phone if you have someone good on the phone and it's a fresh contact, and they get along with them, you're already 50% there. And so, but your points are all good. So I get it.
Yeah. And the hard part is prioritizing that funnel enough to put someone on the phone that can execute that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. And if we don't have it on our website, I know that it was on our old website, and we just launched our new one maybe a couple of weeks ago. And so maybe we omitted that, but we'll solve it, because I agree with you. We've closed multiple deals on the phone.
Yeah, you guys are rolling. So
on inbound calls. And so it's real. Thanks for the phone
number. Yeah. Good stuff.
Cool. Thank you. Good to see you.
All right, Nuam, it's your turn. You had a couple questions in there, I think. Something on pricing, something on customer marketing. Are you on?
Which one do you want me to go with first?
We can tackle both. Feel free to start with whichever one you want, and we can do both for you.
Okay. Maybe I'll start with the pricing question, because I know we're talking a little bit like you went back to your product days. So I thought I'll throw this one to the group, because I know most of you on here are from SaaS companies, and this is what your buyers are used to. For us, I come from like traditionally a service company, and we price a fee per a placement. So everything that we provide in the back end, we provide because we have our own technology. We're able to run that. We're able to provide the service, and it's a fee per unit sort of thing. now we've been building our technology, and it's a powerful piece of technology, but we've never been able to create the front end interface that's been really good for the user.
Okay.
We're at a stage now where we have built that, and we want to go out there and we've added new features as well that allow the user to be able to go into the portal themselves and do all these other cool things. We've been talking internally about, if we're going to promote this, promoting the piece of technology for free. Our revenue model stays the same. So if you use us, if you're a customer, it's a fee per unit. So that doesn't change. But this amazing technology that they get is just, you get it, it's free. And we're talking about maybe it's forever free. My thing is in a market where half of the stakeholders will be TAs and hiring managers, where SaaS is very much a popular, is very popular. Is this a good idea? Because it means that, oh, good, there's no license limitations. Everyone in the organization can have a profile, set themselves up and start using this thing. Or is it going to be a bit of a blocker because are we essentially, losing potential money, potential revenue?
Yeah. Do they need to be a customer of your service business in order to get value out of this technology?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
They'll need to be a customer of the service.
They will have to be. At the moment, there aren't plans to make it SaaS on its own. Obviously, then that means we wouldn't make anything. So it's a combined sort of thing, combined deal.
And so would there ever be a situation where somebody was using the technology but not working with you? No.
I did ask that question, and at the moment it's a no, but there's always that kind of question hanging in there. It's like, oh, would we ever do that? Could we ever do that down the track? Potentially, but
yeah, it doesn't sound like you're there yet. So I'll just talk through one when you're there. There's plenty of professional services companies that build some type of technology internally when they're at 5 to 10 to 15 million that they built for themselves to do their job better. And then they convert that to a SaaS product and they go out and sell it. And oftentimes the mistake that they make is trying to use the SaaS product as an entry point to selling the services rather than just selling the SaaS tool on its own. And so I've been pushing people. You're not in this situation. This is more for the listeners, but I'm pushing people to think, if you're in that situation, to think about it like it's two completely separate companies, and the services firm is a customer of the SaaS firm, and the SaaS firm has their own P&L. They have their own LLC. It's a different entity with a different P&L because it makes it more clean, and it allows the SaaS tool to actually be a company, not a lead gen tactic to the service. Okay, so now that I got that in there, let's actually talk about your question. And so I honestly don't, based on the way that you said, I don't see any other way to do it, right? Like if you have the technology and you're going to let customers use it, you have two options. You give it to them for free. They have to be a customer already, so they're paying you something. It just becomes an added value. You can make it an add-on, so they pay you a certain amount if they don't use it, and they pay more if they are using it. Those feel like the only couple options. Now, at that point, you have to figure out how much value the tool adds, and things like that. So I think have you talked to customers about what they think about it?
We're pulling together a focus group now, and the thing hasn't publicly launched yet, but we've been building it in close collaboration with an existing client, and they're a big enterprise business, and a lot of those features have been built with them. So there's a bit of confidence that, if it's fixing their problem, it's going to fix quite a few businesses' problems.
I would challenge you, and this is going to be off topic, but I would challenge you to start to think about why it can't be used without your service. It would be an interesting thing to think about, because sometimes that barrier is in the mind of the executives at the company, but it's not real. I've seen that happen multiple times. But in general, I think you basically go out and talk to customers, more than just that one, right? So maybe you have a couple that are coming, friendly customers that have been with you for a while. Whenever they have whatever they need, that they come to you or whatever, you have a good relationship with them, get feedback from them, make them feel like, and I love using qualifiers at the beginning. Hey, like, we've been working on this thing. We worked on it with one customer. I have no idea whether or not it would work for you, but can I show you how to do it and get your honest thoughts? If you think it sucks, just tell me. And so get some feedback, and then with that feedback, start to build a value prop, and then try and match the value prop to pricing. That is not like the Profitwell. Patrick Campbell from Profitwell would scream at me for giving you this advice, but because it's not like super scientific. But at this stage, I think that's the easiest way to get it done.
Okay. Thank you. I'll follow that route.
I wanted to
Cool.
chime in on that. You mentioned that you're working in close collaboration with one enterprise customer to build this out. Just one word of caution is, especially if it's a really big company, they might have a lot of really specific asks for how their organization operates that might not translate to a broader customer base. So just keep that in mind, or if they're asking for like really specific things, or there are ways to validate some of those with some other customers, so you don't over index on building something that's like really for this one customer versus all of them. I've been in that situation before. So just something to keep in the back of your head.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
I love
One
it.
more?
Getting experience feedback is really, really good. My other question was, how do you differentiate between customer experience marketing versus customer experience, the division, I guess, in the company? So is customer experience your support team, and does it also include account management or account growth, customer success team? And if so, what's the relationship between customer marketing? And the question is because in the background, we're kind of restructuring a little bit, and I want to just sort of figure out where I can make marketing sort of a little bit more sticky in those areas, and say, well, CX comes out under marketing actually, or if it doesn't, this is how it relates to those departments.
Yeah, in a lot of companies that were, let's look back 20 years, customer experience fell under marketing, right? And for whatever reason, in the SaaS tech industry, they continue not only to segment between SDR and AE and sales engineer and solutions consultant and blah, 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 right? They've taken that same methodology and they execute it with every single department, right? So marketing no longer actually owns the things that a main marketing department would do. We had ICP on here. I'd be very interested to know how many marketing departments in B2B SaaS actually define their ICP. They might have a say in it, but sales defines it, or finance defines it based on total addressable market and things like that. And so it's just interesting to think about. Like, I come from places where when you have a marketing strategy that includes go-to-market, pricing, positioning, segmentation, targeting, things like that, and you put all of those components together, that's where you get a very cohesive, business strategy. I've been in a lot of places where marketing basically runs the business strategy, and sales is one of the components that's executing on it, and product is one of the components that's executing on it. That doesn't happen in these industries. It becomes very segmented. One of the things that gets segmented off is customer experience, right? So sometimes it's their own department, and then customer experience is a weird term because some companies call that customer service. Some companies call that customer success. Some companies have their own specific department that's in charge of sending people gifts every 6 months when they, hit their anniversary of becoming a customer, right? And so I think it's hard to answer this question because it's very dependent on the organization, and more importantly than the organization, the skills of the people that sit in those seats in the organization. The way that, and I'm just thinking out loud here because this is not my core skill set, but if you were going to have a CX person, they would it would almost feel like what a RevOps team should be doing, but for experience, right? So RevOps is to sales, marketing, success, as experience would be almost in the same direction, but focused on a different thing. And so that would be an interesting way to look at it. I don't know whether that's right or wrong, but Megan, you probably have some good insights on this one.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of sort of the confusion, I think, with what companies call different things. A lot of people, when they say CX, they do mean customer support and customer service, which is very different. I think if I were you and you have the ability to influence this org change or this org redesign, I would just take a step back and really understand what are the main goals and problems in the organization. I think there's a lot of benefit to have someone in the marketing function actually designing, like we were talking about this at the beginning of the episode, the buyer experience, and then what happens after. It can be a collaborative effort with the post-sale teams and the people that actually work with the customers directly, but there needs to be an architect and an owner, ideally, of the whole experience, and then different teams can execute against the different milestones in the journey. And I don't know who the right executive or sort of VP level person within your organization, but if I were you, I would be trying to think, who is the right person to like lead that charge and be the architect and the decision maker? And then you have a collaborative effort to design the journey, and then have really clear definitions of who owns what along that journey. You need a customer service and a customer support team. You should have customer success. Those functions are different. And in my view, customer experience is everything that happens to a customer, from marketing, sales, success, and service. It's inclusive of the entire thing.
Yeah.
So I would think about it that way.
Yeah,
Cool. Good to see you, Nuam.
Victoria just messaged me. She said she had a process for CX that they just went through that was awesome. Why don't you come on and share? I like this. And unmute you, Victoria. Why don't you share your experience on this? It could help Nuam.
sure, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
That mic's going. I'm not sure which one's on right now, so sorry for that. It wasn't at a SaaS company. It was actually a very commodity product, which is really interesting because to brand something like a printer is quite challenging. So we took a very long exercise, and we involved all of the departments to build our customer experience, because it really starts with how the receptionist handled her phone calls, to how the shipping department was packaging the boxes, personalized notes in some of the boxes because it was a very special client. The experience is from A to Z. So we actually took everybody together into workshops to design our experience. And we had this process called identifying jerk processes. We didn't want to hire jerks, and we didn't want jerks in our process. So we had a whole session about pointing out where the jerks are. And the jerk could be as easy as, I'm sorry, you don't have your receipt? Well, I can't credit you, and I can't send you a new one because you don't have a receipt. Well, that's dumb. He clearly has our product. The product serial number says the thing is 6 months old. It doesn't matter. Just give him a new printer. So the process for identifying the jerks was fun to do as a company, because it was breaking down silos. Everybody was involved in it. And we also talked about a lot about lipstick on a pig. Like, marketing can't fix something that's broken. No matter how much you want to put lipstick on this whole experience, if the process is shitty, the process is shitty, and you need to fix the process. Marketing can't do that. So marketing can't be responsible for something that's happening in billing, for example. If that's a horrible process and they're sending out emails that sound like assholes, like, seriously, they're sending out an email that says, we expect payment within 30 days. Well, that's not our personality. That's not our brand personality. There must be a reason the payment didn't come in. That's a jerk process, and it's not in line with our brand. So taking a step way to the beginning of this whole experience was, what's our brand personality? Who are we? How do we want to position in the market? Building the whole personality around who we were, and then making sure that every single step, from answering phone calls to our website process, to the font that we used, absolutely everything was involved in the customer experience. And it was a lot of fun for the whole organization, because the guys in shipping were a part of the brand experience. All of a sudden, they had a role to play in brand experience, which they hadn't tasted before. So it was just, it was lovely. And I think that I would love to have that opportunity to do that at another organization at some point. And it's done from the CEO. If the CEO didn't believe this, it wouldn't have happened. The CEO wanted to say, listen, tomorrow morning, if I decide we're going to sell big screen televisions instead of printers, people need to love our brand, not our printer. And our brand represents more than the product.
Amazing. Mic drop. Way to go, Victoria. That was great. For that, check out the chat. People are giving you high fives and cheers. That was awesome. Well played. For that. Any thoughts to add to that, Chris? I don't know.
You just got to fix. I mean, there's not much to say. You got to, for some of those things, you need to fix it at the core. And it sort of bleeds into some of the stuff that we were talking about before, about a lot of companies can put a new brochure or a new pamphlet or something with 20% off inside of the box as a tactic, right? It's a little thing as opposed to starting over and thinking about it from the beginning, which the story you just told was a great example of trying to start with a blank sheet of paper, as opposed to building on top of what's already been existing, which is a theme that I've been talking about a lot recently, because it just creates better outcomes when you're like, this isn't working, let's start over. And it's more fun too. Cool. We got time for one or two more, maybe. We got nothing going.
Yeah. I mean, maybe some closing thoughts.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all right. We'll have yeah, that's great. We don't need to set the record for longest Demand Gen Live episode every night. Okay. So
we got 2 lives next Tuesday. So we need to give people some downtime.
Everyone, make sure you get to sleep early tonight and over the next 6 nights, because we are going out for a bang on the 23rd of February. Right. So Udia Gong at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, Tuesday, February 23rd. Registration link will go out tomorrow. That one is going to be awesome. I don't know if there was people on here that attended the one with Dave Gerhardt that we did last week, but it was awesome. Like a really good insights. It was recorded on a podcast. We got into some interesting things. We had a little bit of time, so we did some Q&A. It's interesting to have other practitioners, is what I would really call it, other practitioners inside of established B2B companies that are thinking about things differently and doing innovative things. I want to celebrate that, which is why we have people like Gaetano and Dave and Udi on the show, because I know that there are constraints inside of a lot of companies, but if you look around, there are some that are really starting to recognize how things are changing and moving, and those need to become part of your role model, not necessarily for the people on the Zoom, but for people listening afterwards. There are clear people that are leading the way and winning. And you need to start looking at what are they doing? How are they thinking about things? Why did they do it that way? What can I learn here? How do I think that they measured that? Did they care whether to measure it or not? Like, those are all interesting questions. And so anyway, I'm really looking forward to it. I've never talked to Udi before, so the first time we're doing it, we're probably going to go live with hundreds of people, which will be cool. And so I hope to see you there. It's always a pleasure seeing all of you. We'll come back with a theme-based agenda next week with Gaetano. So stick around for that as well. And we'll see you soon.
It's good to see everyone. Have a good week.